beloved, and welcome to another episode of the Wholeness Wisdom Well. Thank you so much for joining me. The Wholeness Wisdom Well podcast is all about unlocking the paradoxes of everyday Eden and activating our natural divinity. And in this episode, if you have been trying to make sense of the current chaos of old structures disappearing, and you are asking yourself, how do I find that crystalline clear purpose that I individually am meant to bring to the world, to contribute to this time, this evolution and this shift, then I think that this episode is going to be of particular interest and really hope to illuminate and elevate your consciousness and perception of the possibilities available. I'm going to start with a sacred story that I've held very close to my heart, and then we're going to dive into the lessons that I gleaned from this experience and what you can do in your own personal life to step into that higher empowerment of your essence in these times. So there was a moment in 2013, around October. I was in Portugal in a little village called Orem. My father was dying of terminal cancer, which had started in the colon, went to the liver and lungs, and then had spread throughout his entire body. And I had just got a call from a client and had booked my very first keynote engagement. And I was absolutely thrilled. I was staying with mom and dad because I wanted to be there for these last 6 months of his life. And just sold off my first keynote speech and gave a shout of joy. And as I was walking into the kitchen, Dad walked out of his room, and very frail and very fragile, he asked me, "What's the fuss? What's happening?" You know, and sometimes when you squeal and you don't know if you're actually dying or if you're really happy. So he was kind of worried, like, what's the fuss? What's the fuss? And I said to him, "Dad, you won't believe it, but I have just booked my first keynote speech. I've been invited to speak on innovation and creativity, and they're going to pay me 3,500 euros for 45 minutes. Isn't that incredible?" And my father had the reaction of a lifetime that I never expected. He went absolutely white. I thought he was going to pass out. So I gently grabbed him and walked him to the couch, sat him down, went to go get a glass of water, gave him the glass of water, and kneeled in front of my father and looked at his face, of course, in utter bewilderment. I mean, I'm just giving you the most phenomenal news, and he was in absolute shock. So I gave him a couple of minutes to calm down. And when he started speaking, he spoke with a voice that I've never heard my father speak. It was quivering in fear, in regret, in repentance, as he said, "Lizette, I've made a big mistake." And I said, "Dad, please, it's okay. What is it?" "You don't understand. I have failed, Lizette. I have made the biggest mistake." And of course, he is so vulnerable. And I knew I had to step into this very open, very loving, very safe space for my father. And he said to me, "Honey, you don't remember this, but you were 5 years old, and we were driving in a pickup truck to go to the river, which was in Botswana. And we were in the 4x4, and I asked you, love, I asked you what you wanted to do with your life. And you looked at me and you said, 'Dad, I think I want to talk.'" And then he goes, "You want to talk?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "What do you want to talk about?" I said, "I don't know yet, but I talk a lot." And then he goes, "Yes, you do." and then he said, "But you know, Lizette, you can't talk because no one will pay you to talk." And what had just happened as he told me that story is that I came into the full awareness that for all of my life, I had known exactly what I was meant to do. I had known exactly what my purpose was. I had known exactly what my talents were. And it was through the mouth of babes. It was in that state of innocence. And I also realized that the man who had devoted his life to raise me, educate me, elevate me, protect me, love me, had been the biggest obstacle, unconsciously, of the way my path and my soul had called me for. He saw in that instant how every single time he had talked me out of my destiny or tried to. And we'd had a moment, you know, the tears running down his face. I moved away from my father. I went to go sit on the sofa to just digest for a second what had happened. He had seen me floundering my whole life, looking for what I was supposed to do, aware that I had a mission, I had a purpose here, and not knowing where I was to go. So it was almost like a life review right in that moment. Like I saw high school being a struggle. I saw me going into the corporate world and into this competitive workplace and trying to survive and making a success, mind you, of everything, because I was devoted, I was committed, I was talented. What I didn't know, I would learn. He saw my dedication, my struggle. But he also saw that no matter what I did, I really was never fulfilled, because of course I'd never come into my full soul purpose. I was here to talk. And as I sat there digesting all of that, feeling all of the exhaustion, feeling all of the rage, all of the disappointment, all of the disillusionment that every step of this process that I had called life had brought me. And then I had this opportunity to take it out on him, justifiably. There he stood, or sat. But I looked at him and I saw that repentance. And then the most surprising thing came out of my mouth as I sat there with the conscious choice of forgiving, genuine repentance. And I said to him, Dad, you have done it absolutely perfectly. And he said, no, I haven't. I said, oh, yes, you have. Because remember I told you that I didn't know what I want to talk about? And he said, yes. He says, well, I didn't know. So I have spent my lifetime, 22 years at that point already, in the church, learning about Christ's words, his ways, his consciousness. I had worked for 15 years in a career, learning what leadership was, what was phenomenal about business and what was toxic as hell for human beings, for teams. And I was finding content and the ways of how to be authentic. I said, Dad, I've spent 15 years in a marriage that is failing, and every step of my path has equipped me with the content so that when I start talking, I will know what I'm talking about. I looked at him and I saw that every advice he had ever given me had been wholeheartedly with the intention of keeping me safe and sound. But he was from a paradigm and a time, as we all are, of fear, a paradigm of hiding, a paradigm of conforming, a paradigm of morality, not doing what was right according to consciousness, but doing what was right according to the morality and expectations of every other person, at the cost of following our authentic, sovereign soul calling. I looked at my father and I said, Dad, you have been the perfect teammate. I love you infinitely, and I ask you to please forgive yourself. My father got up. He said, thank you, Lisette. You are truly good. And that acknowledgement from my father was the only acknowledgement I ever have needed. And I know, and I'm so blessed that he went in December 2013, December 2013, knowing that I had found my path, with that peace in his heart that I had found the light in the darkness for myself, and that he had raised me right in spite of himself. Not because of himself. He had loved me and done his best. And that is all we can ask from our loved ones. So, how do we apply this to our evolution of everyday Eden, of this new age? I have found that the key is to understand